Good morning, Moonhaven Falls. This is Audrick Cashmere. I am coming to you live from Gorak's Bakery, where the air is thick with the scent of yeast, toasted grain, and it seems intellectual debate. Beside me is Charles, our favorite resident from elsewhere, and Gorak, who is currently holding a slice of sourdough, staring at it with the intensity of a diamond merchant thinking he's being swindled.
It is simply too white, Audric. And the crumb, it is oddly consistent. I have been milling flour by hand or with an old stone wheel for 20 years now. My flour has character. It has bits of husk. It has soul. This Charles Finn flour looks as though it were ground by the gods themselves.
That would be the Mark I hydro press at work, I think. Charles, Gorak seems to think your mechanical perfection is a bit, well, unnatural. How are you responding to this charge of soulless flour? Well, I told him character is another word for unpredictable grit. Look, I understand the suspicion, Gorak. Really, I do. Back at home, we had things so processed it barely resembled food. I don't see that happening here anytime soon. But this, buddy, this is just physics. The hydro press uses a series of gradiated sieves. Finn nearly went blind drilling the holes, let me tell you, to ensure that every grain is reduced to the same fine powder and that anything too large gets sifted out and reground. This isn't magic. This is just the beauty of a repeatable process.
Well, it tastes excellent. Rises a bit higher. The outside is perhaps a little crisper, as I did not need to watch it quite as closely. But if I depend on your machine, Charles, and that piston Finn made snaps, then I have no bread. I am suspicious of any quality I cannot produce with my own two arms.
Okay, hold on, Gorak, that is a fair point. But Charles, you've been busy elsewhere too, right? I heard you were over at the Alchemist Quarter yesterday. Did you actually manage to give them those formulas they were hounding you for? Oh, Audric, I tried. Really, I did. I had a fascinating, if somewhat terrifying, conversation with an alchemist friend of mine, Master Elwyn. I don't know if you've met him or not, but we've discovered a bit of a universal disconnect. I gave him the ratios for what I remembered of gunpowder, sulfur, charcoal, saltpeter. He mixed them to my exact specifications, and you know what happened? I assume something went boom?
I heard a phut sound from 3 blocks away.
Exactly. A phut. It turned into a very expensive, very smelly pile of purple smoke. It seems the chemistry of Moonhaven doesn't quite match the chemistry of my home. The major elements have more of Finn's, soul than I'm used to. If you get too much of a single chemical in a single place, it's every bit as likely to spontaneously transmute itself into a mephit and go flying out the door. And as for gasoline, ha! We tried to refine some of the deep earth oils that Lord Kendrick found. The liquid just turned into a translucent jelly that started humming in the key of C sharp. My friend tells me it sounds like the elemental soul is something we didn't have to deal with back in the other universe. It seems this world's a bit too saturated with magic for the pure, raw chemistry to behave the way I remember. So you're telling us there'll be no engines, no flying machines? Well, not the way I knew them. I can't just reach into my memory and pull out a futuristic solution anymore. This world has its own rules, it seems. So if I want to build something that moves, I'm going to have to account for the will of the materials and be careful about not getting too much of certain things near each other because the laws of attraction and contagion will mess with them. It's frustrating, if I'm being entirely honest. I'm already starting to miss the reliability of a world where a spark under the right circumstances always led to a predictable explosion. But at least weight and gravity is consistent enough to help bake a decent loaf of bread.
It is quite good bread, Charles. If you and Finn can keep the quality this high, I will use your flour. But if I find a single metric bolt in my crust, I'm tossing you into the oven.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Moonhaven's industry sounds like it's safe, as long as it stays out of the sourdough. This is Audrick Cashmere, wondering if Alara Meadowlight can cast a spell to make this bread butter itself. You're listening to the Crystal Network.
Good morning, Moonhaven Falls. This is Ignis, the Scaled Sophisticate. I spent the morning watching a trio of our fated scholars down near the base of the plateau. They had constructed a truly marvelous contraption of iron pulleys and precisely weighted counterweights designed to lift a stone from the quarry with absolute mathematical efficiency. They had pages of blueprints calculating the exact friction of the ropes and pulleys and the tension of the iron. It was truly a beautiful piece of design. And then, a passing breeze from the Serpent's Tooth Peak took a liking to the rhythm of their spinning axle and began to hum with it, and promptly spun the entire mechanism backward out of pure playfulness. I have never seen men looking quite so profoundly betrayed by a gust of wind. They are growing quite frustrated, I can tell. They believe their failure is simply a matter of a lower technology base. They think if they could just forge better steel, perhaps refine pure chemicals, they can rebuild the world they lost. But many of them are coming to the understanding that our elements have soul, that the iron remembers where it was mined, that the water can have a bit of a temper, and magic does not merely bypass machinery. It actively mocks it if one gets too arrogant. And I'm afraid they shall have to learn to adapt to a living world, not merely one a little behind where they once were. The answers to last week's questions are as follows: sealing wax, a compass, flax or linen, church bells, pitch, a scale, and a crossword puzzle. In honor of things that are refusing to behave as their cold numbers suggest, I have a set of 7 new hurdles, a collection of items that require a bit of living understanding to master. Let's see who can solve them first, shall we? Number 1. I am a hollow reed, harvested from the riverbank, sharpened to a single point. I am entirely empty inside until I dip my foot into the dark, and I only tell my stories when I am pressed hard and made to bleed. What am I? The first of 7 markers on the path to adaptation. Do please take your solutions to Timmy. Let us see if our newcomers can learn to negotiate with the elements, or if the Valley's veterans will carry the day this week. Until next week, Moonhaven, do learn to listen to the wind. Otherwise, it may be whistling a tune you don't want to hear.
Good day to you, ruin runners, map makers, and those of you currently double-checking the seals on your health potions. I am Morwen Brightseen, and you are listening to the Dungeon Delver's Report, compiled at the behest of Lord Pernatius Kendrick. We have a rather eerie update close to home today, followed by some fascinating, far-flung reports from the edges of the known maps. So, let's get straight to the breakdown. We open up with a brief, somewhat unsettling advisory regarding the Shadowfen southeast of town. The marsh has gone completely, suspiciously quiet over the last 48 hours. Now, local scouts are reporting the usual ambient sounds of the swamp have now flatlined. There is still absolutely no news or sign of the adventuring party that marched in after the fade 3 weeks ago. The town guard is currently treating the entire perimeter as a high alert zone, so if you're planning a salvage run in that direction, our official advice is quite simple: don't. Moving on to our ongoing coverage of the Kronos Keep survivors, we are now seeing the higher tier veterans stumbling across the threshold. They are looking incredibly beaten up and exhausted. Dented armour, shattered shields, and some severe chronological fatigue are now the baseline for these teams. It is a well-known fact that the longer you withstand the reality-bending effects of the tower, the better your loot. But the worse your toll is. Now, they didn't just bring back trinkets. We have verified several reality-bending artifacts hitting the high-end markets today, including a breastplate that actively divines the next killing blow its wearer is going to take, and then physically alters its composition to prevent that exact type of blow from landing. The only downside to this is that it borrows from the user's psychic abilities, leaving you reeling from the backlash after the would-be fatal blow lands. In practical terms, this leaves you at a disadvantage for your next 2 attacks, as you have no warning before the migraine hits, and it takes a full, long rest before it can alter itself again. The bidding wars for this one are fierce, but the Delver who found it, learning how it works while wearing it, is currently unavailable for comment due to being asleep for the last 16 hours straight. Moving far to the southwest, deep in the suffocating humidity of the sunken jungle, we have a fresh report from the massive vine-choked complex. This sprawling jungle dungeon is currently uncleared. The architecture itself is not the problem. It is currently the spore-borne stalkers infesting the canopy. These plant-based predators drop from above using strong, acidic tendrils to dissolve leather straps and armor rivets before dragging their prey into the brush. The Alchemist Guild is offering a massive bounty for the intact jade lotus pods found growing along the Ziggurats' flooded lower terraces. Bring fire-enchanted weaponry, as standard steel tends to just get gummed up by the thick regenerative sap. Moving on, we have a tantalizing bit of hearsay for those who don't mind a long march through freezing conditions. Unconfirmed rumours are currently trickling in about a brand new, completely untouched dungeon discovery. Somewhere on the far, unexplored side of the Serpent's Tooth Mountains, whispers from nomadic fur trappers suggest a massive obsidian archway has cracked open along the sheer cliff face following a recent avalanche. The Watchtower Authority hasn't even sent scouts to verify this yet, so if you are in the area or heading out that direction, you are currently entirely off the grid, out of communication distance, and navigating blind. But if you can find it, you can claim it. Assuming, of course, you've survived the climate and the contents. Heading over to the treacherous waters off the Shattered Coast, we have a partial success report to file. The seafaring guild, known as the Wave Riders, have successfully breached the sea caves of the Screaming Skerries. They have escaped with 3 chests of ancient, solid gold navigational instruments that date back to the pre-Cataclysm era. Unfortunately, they were forced to leave their flagship behind. The lower cavern system is home to a brine mother hydra whose heads can detach and swim independently to hunt down fleeing vessels. This area is now designated as a maritime hazard zone. And finally, a grim warning from the jagged industrial ruins deep within the northern ash wastes. There has been an abysmal failure for the Bronze Vanguard expedition. This team attempted to scavenge the automated library lines of the Rust Spire, completely ignoring the warning signs of a nanite swarm infestation. The microscopic mechanical locusts have stripped the enchantments right off of their magical weapons, rendering them mundane iron before systematically dismantling their supply wagons. It would appear that only 2 of the members have escaped, on foot, and it is highly recommended you avoid this sector until the swarm undergoes its scheduled centennial deactivation cycle. Well, that's the long and short of it for this broadcast. Keep your rations dry and your eyes on the shadows. This has been More One Bright Scene. Clear a path, watch your flank, try not to get eaten, and keep updated on the goings-on, here on the Crystal Network. Welcome to you, esteemed councillors and Iron Wardens. A polite bow to the merchants and the draymen. A friendly wave to the teamsters, the masons, and the citizens of all walks of life, here in the Lost Realms. Welcome back to Crossroads Chronicles. I am your host, Audrick Cashmere. Now, tonight, we are talking about innovation, expansion, and the rapidly growing blue-collar economy of our valley. Ever since the Triton farmer Thalric showed us all that the local riverbeds could be cultivated, a half-dozen more Triton families have followed his example, turning the waters of the Moonhaven River into a thriving aquatic homestead. Joining me today by the fountain is a gentleman who sees a massive opportunity in all of those crops. A Vedalken of immense focus and industrial ambition. please welcome the founder of Aegis Hydrological Wholesaling, Master Oren Thule. Good evening, Master Cashmere, and a fascinating evening to your listeners. I must say, conducting an interview out here by the self-heating fountain is a marvel of thermal engineering, most efficient use of a public space I have seen in several months. We rather like it. Now, Master Thule, you're a Vedalken of industry. Usually, your people are found in massive, meticulously organized metropolitan centers. What brought your keen eyes to our little slice of the Lost Realms? A logistical reality, Audrick. I have been watching the agricultural output of Moonhaven Falls very, very closely. What Thulric started was a novelty. What we have now is a legitimate industry. 6 separate Triton farming operations are currently pulling bushels of river kelp, deep-water tubers, and specialized freshwater mosses out of the currents. But there is currently a bottleneck. Tritons excel at cultivating the crop, but they lack the terrestrial infrastructure to dry, process, pack, and ship it to the water markets downriver. That is where I intend to come in. So you're looking to establish a massive drying, wholesaling operation here? Precisely. I intend to build a state-of-the-art facility utilizing specialized air current architecture to dehydrate the kelp in record time, stabilizing it for long-distance trade. And I must say I am profoundly impressed by how open-minded the populace of Moonhaven Falls is. You have dragons altering the weather, Shadow Kai planning birthday parties, and Loxodon captaining boats. The cultural friction here is remarkably low, which is excellent for productivity. Well, we do pride ourselves on our neighborly spirit, but a project of your scale requires a lot of dirt, Master Thule. Moonhaven Falls is bustling, but I'll be honest with you, space is starting to get a little tight. Yes. A very astute observation, Audrick. That is the exact mathematical hurdle I am currently calculating. The town island itself is, frankly, running out of room. If I lay down a warehouse foundation here, I am competing with the local housing and the trade stalls. Efficiency would dictate that I should potentially look elsewhere. Are you looking at the surrounding banks, then? I am currently calculating 2 primary options. The first is, of course, acquiring a parcel on the west bank of the Moonhaven River, just across from the main town. That would keep us close to the local harbour, though it does require building a reliable ferry or bridge infrastructure for heavier, more consistent cargo wagons. The second option is looking slightly down valley to the neighbouring town of Smithfield. Smithfield? That's a bit of a haul from the Triton farms, though, isn't it? A greater distance by the road, yes. However, Smithfield has an abundance of flat available land, a highly skilled manufacturing labour force, and established overland trade routes. For the farmers, upstream to Moonhaven or downstream to Smithfield matters only based on which town they are personally closer to. I am currently running a cost-benefit analysis weighing the immediate proximity of the West Bank against the industrial readiness of Smithfield. I would welcome any feedback or proposals from landholders on either side of the location. My door at the local inn is always open, as it were, to a serious contractor. Well, if I know the folks in Smithfield, they'll be knocking on your door by sunrise to pitch their plots. Master Thule, it sounds like Moonhaven River is about to become a major commercial highway. Thank you for sharing your vision with us tonight. The pleasure was entirely analytical, Master Cashmere, but I do appreciate the broadcast time. That was Oren Thule, looking to turn our local river vegetation into the valley's next big export. You're listening to Crossroads Chronicles here on the Crystal Network.
Good evening, Moonhaven Falls. I am Selene Meadowlight, and this is the Magic Minute. We begin today at the Arcane Academy, where a profound generational divide has begun forming. Our first and second year students are still entirely consumed by the tap light gold rush. However, the faculty has finally begun cracking down on truancy. Now that word of these touch-activated lamps is spreading far beyond the valley, demand is still rising, but the dean has made it clear that this lucrative mass production does not count toward advanced degrees in transmutation. Meanwhile, our upperclassmen, buoyed by the underclassmen's successes, have spent the last week hunting for the next big breakthrough. They have attempted to recreate a fated concept known as fire in a can, or, more commonly called, a lighter. As it turns out, trapping elemental forces of fire, light, and wind inside of tiny reusable metal casings is a terrifying mechanical paradox. The elements simply do not enjoy being bottled. The Academy's sealed labs have heavily earned their keep once again this week, absorbing dozens of high-velocity containment breaches. And the less said about the student who tried mixing poisonous gas with fire to create a constant flame, the better. While the project has been an abysmal failure, the faculty has stepped in to prevent casualties, and we must give a massive thumbs up to the brilliant senior who suggested keeping an abjuration specialist on hand to maintain a physical shield around testing tables. You've saved at least 3 eyebrows, Thursday alone, senior, and probably several lives as well. We salute you. Our artifact of the week is a rather treacherous piece of high-fashion espionage, the telepathic hat of truth detection. In appearance, it is a remarkably stylish cap, adorned with a brilliant polished gemstone. Once attuned, it grants the wearer telepathy with up to 6 individuals for a full 16 hours per long rest. Furthermore, the gemstone pulses with a bright light whenever the wearer speaks a falsehood.
Which, of course, sounds incredibly useful, right? Except, of course, the cosmic prankster who forged it added a malicious curse. The gemstone itself is completely invisible only to the person wearing it, and they remain entirely unaware the gemstone's even attached to the hat until someone points it out to them.
Exactly, and because it requires attunement, it cannot be physically removed from your head until the curse is broken or the wearer perishes. The moment the curse is lifted, the hat immediately teleports itself to the nearest second-hand shop in the valley, changes its own physical appearance, and then waits for its next victim. So, if you suddenly find yourself knowing what your friends are thinking while your forehead is glowing, it's probably time to check a mirror. Now let's peer into the inflexible threads. Today, we address the ultimate equalizer of mortal effort, the law of simultaneous advantage and disadvantage.
Here we go again. This has got to be the absolute laziest piece of cosmic math in the entire multiverse. Selene, please, explain to the listeners what happens when a seasoned warrior has a clear, overwhelming tactical upper hand and faces a single, tiny inconvenience.
Well, the law is absolute, Audrick. If you possess advantage, meaning the universe grants you 2 cosmic dice to choose your best physical outcome, but you suffer even a single instance of disadvantage, the 2 forces instantly counter one another. They do not calculate weight. They do not compromise. You would, if this were a game, roll a single dice.
And that is mathematically offensive. Let me give you a scenario. I, as an incredible archer, am hiding in complete darkness. This means my target cannot see me. Advantage number 1. My ally, a massive Goliath barbarian, is currently knocking the target prone and pinning his arms, meaning the target is entirely defenseless. That is advantage number 2. Furthermore, our party wizard struck the target with a fairy fire spell, illuminating weak spots with a glowing purple light. That is advantage number 3. I have 3 separate, overwhelming cosmic reasons why my arrow should pierce a vital spot. But if a mild, say, 10-mile-an-hour crosswind picks up, the universe throws up its hand and says, "Oof! A crosswind? Oh no! That's a disadvantage! Sorry, Audrick, all 3 of your magnificent advantages are completely cancelled out. Roll a normal arrow shot."
Well, the weave does favor simplicity over arithmetic, Audrick. The architects decreed that complexity slows down the flow of reality. 1 drop of rain can ruin a perfect sunny day, and 1 instance of hardship muddies even the grandest of opportunities.
It doesn't slow down reality. It punishes effort. If I have 3 distinct forces working in concert in my favor and 1 working against me, common sense dictates I should have a net total of 2 advantages. I should be attacking with a clear upper hand. Instead, the cosmos treats a blind, pinned, glowing target in a light breeze exactly the same as if we were both standing in an open field staring each other down. It's bureaucratic nonsense.
may find it frustrating, Audrick, but the law prevents mortals from spending 20 minutes calculating physics of a single sword swing. The universe balances the ledger instantly. 1 cancels 1, and 1 also cancels 100. That's all the time we have, so keep your eyes on the wind, Moonhaven, and don't try to condense fire into a tin can. It doesn't like that very much. This has been Selene Meadowlight with the Magic Minute.
And that, my lords and ladies, brings us to the end of another episode. Don't forget we return with new stories every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. Eastern, and if we succeeded in making your day a bit more amusing, helped you start the day a little more relaxed, or inspired you to be a bit more expressive to those around you, please subscribe. Leave a quick rating, pass this episode along to a friend or a community. It's the easiest way to help us tame the wild algorithm that monitors the airwaves, and ensure that our signal keeps reaching you. A massive thank you to our incredible community. My family and I are deeply grateful for your support every single week. If you ever want to throw a little more encouragement our way, a monthly cup of coffee or chocolate milk goes a long way to keeping the creative fires burning. I'll see you all down in the comments. Until next week, take care.